I think, like, what I've been thinking about, what I was thinking about, especially today at work, because, man, work's been slow.
Oh, I bet.
It's the season for it, holiday season, like motorcycle shop. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to be
cold
dead.
outside. It's super
and
dead.
Right now is like the worst time because it's pre-Christmas.
Yeah.
So like
everybody's spending their money on
everybody's
Christmas.
spending their money on Christmas, and it just got cold. So nobody is interested in springtime stuff right now. Like they just put all their stuff away. They're preparing for the winter. They're barrowing down, They're going into hibernation.
So
people aren't even like bored and need things to do, like, and they're trying to like, oh, let's go to the dealership and look around and think about next month when it's going to be warmish. Like, no, they're just like full on like shut this shit down mode.
Yeah, and with all the free time I get, then I end up, shopping myself and looking at, and this is in the industry, it's an exciting time because this is when all the new product comes out.
Yeah.
So like, and I have to do like, and I take this upon myself. Like, I'm not required to do all this research, but this time of year, I'm on every manufacturer's website, even Harley, because I sell Indians. So I'm like,
well, you got to be versed in your field.
Yeah, I got to be versed in product knowledge, not only in Indian, but I need to know what its comparable brands offer, so I can talk, why the Indian's better than those brands. And Harley's its main competitor, so that's what I got to know. So that's why I'm versed in Harley now, is because I have to research all that crap. But so I'm always excited this time of year, because then I even go, because I'm bored and this is what I like to do. I go beyond looking at bikes. I look at all the new gear coming out, like everything, and I like to know everything that I can. Because it's pertinent to my job, and it's effective. Like somebody comes in and they start talking, like, oh, this Yamaha is coming out with this thing, and I'm like, oh yeah, that thing, I know all about it, and I spout off and tell them all about it and stuff. So, but anyways, I end up looking for stuff for myself, and I'm always in that toss up of like, okay, if I was going to replace the Super Duke, what am I going to replace that thing with? Or if I'm going to replace the Super Adventure, what am I going to replace that thing with? And I've thought about, I even think about it for you, stuff like that. I don't think about it for Nick, because I feel like Nick, he's only been doing this for a year and a half.
He needs a sport touring bike.
Oh, I'd love
We got to figure out how to get him.
I would love, but he just bought an S1000, so it's like, I don't want this dude to have to go out and spend but money like crazy.
Well, and I know he loves his Ninja Julie, but
honestly,
it's kind of like he's got two bikes that kind of do the same thing.
Yeah, I always hate that.
And
well, to be fair though, he thought when he bought the S1000, he thought he was going to be getting rid of the Ninja, or the Ninja was going to be totaled out. So
yeah,
that's why so I understand his decision, but when it turned out that the Ninja was, one, it was not totaled, and two, it was cheap to fix.
Yeah.
And we fixed it. And he's like, I thought he was going to sell it. And he's like, no, I like this bike. I think I'm just going to keep it. I'm like, all right, but.
And if he wants to keep it, like, that's fine. I mean, he's got 4 cars that serve the same purpose. So, yeah. I mean, more power to him if he wants that. But I think I would enjoy having him branch out a little bit,
getting different bikes for different roles.
Yeah, on like a kind of sport tour thing, and kind of get him on that path. I know he's a bit young yet to really embrace the dad bike.
And I know he's seen guys go fast on those kind of bikes. Like he's seen it.
He's perfectly aware, because we do it all the time.
And so like he knows. And I mean, I get it. He's only been doing this a year and a half. He's kind of excited on the sport bike thing.
Yeah, I know. He's quite young in his career still.
I see I can't wait for if Nick ever listens to this, but like, I see a hint of regret in the S1000. A hint. I think he loves the bike because it's like his dream bike, you know, like and he acquired his dream bike, which is a cool thing, but it's also a don't meet your heroes thing. And it's funny, he talks about like, well, Julie's actually more comfortable, and Julie, he feels like
I kind of find that hard to believe, though, to be honest.
To him, he says like Julie's more comfortable. He goes, really, like the S1000, you know, besides it offering its cool factor, because I mean it drips cool factor, and you just like command respect on a bike like that. But like, you know, he says like the ride position on Julie's a little more comfortable, and he just enjoys. Sometimes he's like, I think I enjoy days out on Julie more than the S1000, but the S1000 offers cruise control, but he like barely ever uses it.
I think he's just not as comfortable mentally on the S1000.
Yeah, I
think it's still intimidating for him, which is why he doesn't enjoy that bike.
Anybody, like it's an expensive motorcycle, which you always got that in the back of your mind, regardless of whatever. It's an expensive motorcycle.
Yep.
And then it's just such a powerful machine.
Yeah, I mean he's only using 10% of that bike.
And you know when you're only revving it to like 8 or 9K. The bike isn't even coming alive yet, and it's like it's still more powerful than Julie was at that low of an RPM.
Yeah. Well, and the bike's geared so deep, it can go so fast. Like it's just everything is just turned up to 11 on that bike. So I think it's very intimidating for him, and so he doesn't enjoy it in the same way that you would enjoy riding a $100,000 bike. Because you'd be so worried about a million things going wrong or happening, or that I think that intimidates him a little bit, which makes the bike a little less enjoyable for him. And I think the only way for him to get over that is to just ride it more and just more seat time in general, just increasing his level so that
he's got a fair amount of miles on the thing. Like surprisingly, he's already got like 5,000 miles.
Yeah, but he's done he's done a couple trips and stuff on it, like cruising kind of stuff, where he's just like cruising down the highway and things. Not where he's like really like.
And I think what he's learning is that bike, even though it's a super bike, comparatively, it's actually kind of hard to hustle around. Like you kind of get wore out hustling it around.
It's a little bit heavier and bigger of a bike because.
And you have all that power, and you're trying to tame the power and trying to control the power, which takes a lot of wrestling the bike, and that ends up just wearing you out when you're trying to go out and have a spirited ride, where the Ninja, I would bet, is just easier to ride. So since it's easier to ride, that also makes it a little more enjoyable, and that's why he may feel that it's more comfortable, even though it's a committed ride position. It's just an easier bike to ride, and I think that's what he's butting into.
I think that's where the S1000 would have better suited him. I think that would have given him a very different perspective.
What do you mean the S1000?
Or the single R versus
the single
double
R. That's what I thought you meant, was the single R. But I mean, I get it. He didn't want a naked bike. He didn't like the look of them. But I would have been like,
well, they're all ugly, but you don't have to look at it when you're riding it.
Well, yeah. And I think they look good. I personally think they look cool. I like the look of a flat bar. I think it looks cool, especially from the back. I always like the look of the back.
Everybody, even Triumph, up until my headlight. My headlight's like the only one that I think doesn't look terrible.
I've always liked naked bike headlights. The ones
before looked terrible. The bug-eyed ones from like 2007 to like 13 or whatever. It was a couple years later than that. Those look terrible. Even the headlight before mine that was LED, but it was still bigger. It looked bad. The Ducati looks bad. I don't know what the deal is with that. It looks terrible. Even the new one. Have you seen the new bike?
Yeah, I like
the one on 44 teeth.
I like them. I think they look good.
I thought it looked terrible, man. I thought it like absolutely looked horrible. I don't know, just like it has these plastic pieces down the side, and it looks like they were just trying to cover shit up. Like, but it didn't. didn't look covered up in a good way. It looked covered up like they were just trying to,
like a lazy way to cover something up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just like the plastic lines didn't flow together. It didn't look like a Ducati to me.
Hang on for a second. I got old man bladder issues.
Oh, geez. Here we go. What are we going to do with you?
I don't know.
You're what, like 50 now?
Pretty much.
Might as well be.
We can edit it out.
I'm going to edit you out.
Wait till you're 40 and you drink a whole glass of water, see what happens.
That's why I don't drink anything before going to bed anymore.
Whew. Hurting, man. That was rough.
I just think that, I don't know, it just doesn't look right. The bike, just something's off. Something doesn't look like Ducati designed it.
And I wouldn't have even tried to have pushed a naked bike onto him. And you know, when he started talking about an S1000, like I think we mentioned some other options, like, hey, why don't you, instead of doing another sport bike, why don't you consider, you know, a naked upright or something else?
He was dead set on
he was
that bike.
dead set. But sometimes when it comes to motorcycling, you got to let the guy learn his lesson.
Yeah, and if that's really what he likes and he really wants to ride sport bikes,
the thing is
fine.
Like, he'll learn that lesson, but he won't be upset. Like I wasn't upset when I owned an S1000, and I kind of shared with him my experience owning an S1000. I bought one brand new in 2012. It's my second motorcycle. I mean, this sounds familiar. It's his second motorcycle. Bought it brand new and stuff. I was stoked to get it, and I was a little higher caliber of a rider at that moment in time than he is currently. I had already had a couple years under my belt, and I was pretty confident rider at that point. So I was able to access the bike and like really use it. I took it to track day and stuff, and had a good time. Took it down the mountains a few times. Had a good time, but ultimately it just boiled down to it's just too uncomfortable. And that's sport bikes, like just sport bikes in general, too uncomfortable.
And that's why I think, I mean, he's quite a bit younger than us.
Well,
so
and I was literally,
it's not
like,
a problem for him yet.
I was 28 when I got my S1000, and so I mean he's 30, and reasonably respectfully, like we were the same age range. I owned my S1000 for 2 years, had 6,000 miles on it, sold it, never looked back. Do I regret owning that bike? Do I regret making that purchase? No, I never regretted owning that bike and making that purchase. That bike was incredible, and it was so beastly. I mean, it's just you get on other things that claim to be as quick, and you ride them. And the S1000 was just on a whole different planet. Like, it was so fast. If he gives you the opportunity to ride it, I mean, I know it's a high seat height and everything like that, but like,
it's not that bad though, is it?
Usually they are. Usually they're close to 33.
Because John's bike is like, his seat height is lower than mine.
I think usually on the RRs they're jacked up.
Is it?
But you know, if
I'm sure it's not worse than my bike. My bike's seat height, it's like 35 or something stupid. I don't know. It's that high. It's like 33 and a half, I think.
Was the original seat height on the Street Triple?
On the RS, yeah.
Okay.
I think it's 33 and a half. I have the low seat on it. But to be honest, it didn't really make a difference. The seat height isn't an issue. It's the width.
Yeah.
And the seats are still the same width. So it doesn't really matter. I've actually thought about putting the original seat back on, hoping that it would be a little more comfortable.
A little more comfortable. Yeah, that would make sense.
Because that's all they did is they just removed all the foam.
That's all they ever do is they just cut out the foam.
And so it has like no foam in it now. So it's just uncomfortable.
Yep. But yeah, like I had never regretted owning that bike and buying that bike. And, you know, back then I paid 17 for it. And nowadays, you know, they're a little over 20. But like I said, I enjoyed it while I had it. But when I let it go, I knew, okay, I learned that lesson. I learned that, okay.
Well, you're turning a chapter in your riding career.
And I was like, next bike, I want the performance and I want to be able to ride it fast. And I rode with the guys that, we all ride with, Schmidt and Lou and all them, and they're all quick, and they all were riding at the time. Those guys were riding all supermotos, and I had a supermoto or was riding mini moto at the time. Yeah, I think I had a supermoto at that time, if I remember right. I had my RMZ 450 supermoto, and I was using that on the track, but I knew I didn't want that thing out on the road. Like, does not make a good road bike at all.
Most supermotos like that really don't. Like, no. Dustin's
it was
contraption,
freaking terrible.
Yeah,
and you're always like having problems and stuff out of it. So it's just ultimately it's not a great road bike.
Yeah, you got to do an oil change on it every day.
Like I didn't want anything to do with that. So I was like, all right, well, let's find a upright naked bike that's got supermoto-y ergonomics, and
it's going to be quick and good on the road.
Playful nature. I wanted it to be real playful.
Yep.
I didn't expect a full supermoto, but I didn't want like sport bikes can be too committed, too serious. And they got their front end always planted and stuff.
They ride a little bit differently.
It's not so playful and wheelies and goofy and stuff like that. That's just fun, like sheer fun. So that's when I couldn't get a Super Duke because they didn't exist yet. And so I bought a Hyper Motard. I loved that bike, and I had it for several years. Very playful, super fun. It's not a real supermoto, but it's also not really a naked bike. It's somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Really supermoto-like ergonomics, and then just fun to ride. Not super fast, but I'll say not in Kentucky, not quite fast enough. In the mountains, nothing on the planet is faster than a hypermotard around the mountains. Like, it is just unbelievably fast in the mountains. It's perfect. It was so good. But yeah, like, if Nick, what I would love Nick to have is pick his poison in sport bike. If he wanted to keep Julie, if he wanted to get rid of the S1000 and get rid of Julie and buy a new ZX6R, whatever. I don't care what or if he wants to keep the S1000, get rid of Julie, like whatever. If he wants to keep both the S1000 and Julie, I would love for him to have something in the stable that was Sport Tour, whatever that may be. If he wanted to go more sport bike and go with a VFR, if he wanted to go more adventure-esque and do something like a Tracer 9, anything like that long distance and stuff. And this is what I wanted to talk to you about, because I think you and I have discussed and kicked around ideas of stuff like the new Tiger 800 or Tiger Sport 800 that's coming out. And I like the 890 SMT. I like the F900 XR. Did you see the new F900 XR, the 2025?
No, I've seen the
redesigned.
I've seen the new adventure, super adventure, whatever they want to call it.
What, the new BMW?
The 1300, yeah.
Nope. No, I'm not talking adventure bikes. I'm talking crossovers, 17-inch wheel bikes.
Yeah.
Long stroke suspension, but 17-inch wheels.
Yeah.
The new F900 XR, not the GS, the XR.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't seen the XR.
17-inch wheel model.
Mm-hmm.
They redesigned it this year for 2025. It looks so good. Like, I mean, this thing looks just aggressive. It looks like a baby S1000 on stilts. It looks so freaking good, man. And the color schemes they have for it are like wild and stuff. Like, it's awesome. Like, you can tell this is a bike for someone who wants to go hooligan.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, that's so me right there. Give me a bike I can hooligan on and pack with bags, I saw that thing. And so I really, really like and dig on these 17-inch wheel crossover bikes. Depending on the price of things, that Suzuki with the longest name in the world, GSX S1000 GX Plus, I think is the full name of it. I love that bike, and I got to see him in person. they're small. I didn't expect it to be small. So when I saw how small it was, 1,000cc bike, I expected it to be kind of bulky because it's a touring bike, you know? It was tiny in person.
Really?
I was like, dude, this thing's killer. It even had a lower seat height than I expected. Not that that matters for me, but like, I just thought that was interesting. But I was really shocked at how physically small the bike was. And I was like, man, I could do some mean things on this. The problem with the Suzuki is I think it costs too much for a Suzuki.
Yeah.
Like 18 grand for a Suzuki. Like, nah, I'll just go get a KTM. But the F900 XR is priced somewhere around 12.
That's not bad.
It's not bad. But I was thinking about this for you and I, and here's the problem I run into. We just talked about we don't want a bike that has too much overlap with our other bikes. And a crossover compared to our naked bike,
it's kind of the same. They're encroaching on the same territory.
Really, really so. Yes, those crossovers will tour, and the naked bike will not tour. The problem I run into is those crossovers are going to really, really limit us if we ever want to go do any like fire road, gravel road, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The adventure bikes still give us access to that. And they're pretty good at sport touring. Like, we can go pretty fast on them. We hit limits.
Mm-hmm.
We do. We start noticing limits, and we're like, all right, time to back it off.
Those limits are fine in that context, though, because it's a limit that's like, if you're 1,000 miles from home and you get to that limit, you're like, I probably shouldn't be doing this 1,000 miles from home where I am like up a creek if something happens.
And that limit always keeps you in check. In my super adventure, people will comment on how fast I go on it. And I'm like, yeah, I know that this thing's like insanely capable and I go really fast on it. But believe it or not, I'm not doing anything crazy. It's well within the bike's limit.
Yep.
And I've been at the point where I'm pushing the front and going a little too fast. And then I'm like, all right, I need to back down. This isn't a sport bike.
Yep.
So I like, you can get to that point where you're fine limit. I know you grind peg, and I know there had to have been a point where you've pushed the front on your Tiger before. Had to have been.
Oh, I'm sure.
But like, and you go much faster on your street triple, but the amount of speed you carry on the Tiger is still like, whoa, like that's pretty quick right there.
Plenty fast enough that there's no reason to need to go any faster.
And while I would love to see what we could do on these crossovers, because, man, they look fun. Like, they look kind of perfect. If they would have existed before we bought the adventure bikes, I think we would have just bought them.
Probably. And that's kind of what we always... Because you had the
Versus.
The Versus first, which is kind of the original crossover. It wasn't quite as refined as the crossovers are these days. It was definitely a budget-oriented bike.
Oh, absolutely.
But it kind of opened the door into, hey, I don't have to have a sport bike to go quick.
Yep.
And I can go really far on this bike and still have fun when I get there.
Yep.
That it kind of can do both. And I mean, that has 17-inch wheels on it. But
I didn't mind off-roading that thing because it was a cheap kind of budget, like how we offer the scooters. They're not meant to off-road, but we do because who cares? They're cheap and stuff like that. That's how I was with the Versus. Like, who cares? It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And then
like a nicer bike like that, not only because I want to keep it from getting scratches and stuff like that, which is a legit reason, but at the same time, it's kind of wuss. You know what I mean? But the real reason I don't want it to get tossed into the dirt and do all kinds of dumb crap like that is because I expect that bike to handle on the edge of performance. And if you start off-roading it and you start doing that and you start using like Shinko 705s and stuff like that, well, you just ruin the purpose of the bike. And
you're compromising on all that. And then if you were to damage something off-road or whatnot, that it's going to ruin that peak performance. And those bikes really probably aren't going to do very well off-road. Even if you did put, setting aside the tire size, the fact that the wheel itself isn't really doesn't really work very well off road because it's a street wheel.
Yep.
The bike isn't set up to handle the rebound and dampening, everything that's required of, doing gravel roads and fire roads, or even worse, just straight up off road. That's where the bikes that are designed, the R models, the suspension is made for that.
Yep.
Whereas on the street model, it's not. The street model's made for street stuff. And that's kind of the problem with adventure bikes, is that the market is so wide on what is an adventure bike.
Yep.
And there's really like 3 classifications, and they all have their own problems. You have street, you have mixed, and then you have off-road. And they all do exactly what you'd think. The street ones are good on the street, and the mixed one is kind of okay at both, but not really great at any one kind of thing. I think that's where my Tiger kind of falls in.
I think so too.
And then you've got the hardcore off-road ones that do great off-road, and they're absolutely horrendous on-road. Like, they're downright scary. It's like riding a dirt bike on dirt tires on the road. Like, it's terrifying. And people act like they're good, and I'm like, it's not, man. Like, you can lie to yourself all you want, but
I've watched George go faster. In all seriousness, I bet I could take a 890 Adventure R and go as fast as George goes on his. Dude moves pretty good on his Adventure R, and he'll go around some corners on the asphalt.
Mm-hmm.
More so than I'm willing to just barrel into.
Well, yeah, I mean, the bike is still gonna. It's not like it is incapable of going on the road.
The thing is, yeah, I'm admitting he's going faster than I thought he would on that bike. But I'm on my Super Adventure and I can go way faster.
Yeah.
It's
you can go way faster.
It's not even close.
And especially since you have sport touring tires on it that are good on the road. He's got knobbies,
literal knobbies,
which are not good.
And I'm saying he's going fast for the bike. He's going fast for the tire, but ultimately it's not fast. And these crossovers, that's what they're calling it now. It's an adventure bike on 17s. And if people would start viewing them through the lens that I think I see them through, it is a supermoto. Literally, like an adventure bike is a dirt bike.
It's a touring supermoto.
An adventure bike is a dirt bike. 21-inch front, 18-inch rear, dirt bike.
Mm-hmm.
That's what
dirt bike seating position.
A 500-pound dirt bike because it's got a giant motor in it, right? That's what an adventure bike is. How do you make a supermoto? Oh, you take a dirt bike and you put 17s on it. Now you got a supermoto.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's a crossover? It's an adventure bike with 17s on it. It's literally the adventure bike version of supermoto.
It's a big supermoto.
So it's a gigantic supermoto with it's like you're literally speaking my language. Like that is the bike I've always wanted, was a big supermoto, big supermoto with a big engine and bags and then some wind protection.
Well, we've always said that the S model was the best model.
Yep.
And
they at the time, that was the most supermoto-like thing you could get.
Yeah. And it was unfortunate that the S models started out as like the stripped down versions of the real big fancy R models and all that. But I think it's kind of caught on, and the manufacturers have realized like, oh, people have started buying S models because they're better. They ended up being better on road for people that go only on road,
or like how we do 95 plus, I'd say it's actually closer to 99% on road. And every once in a while, like if we're down in North Carolina and we bust down a Forest Service road or something. Yeah. It's cool because like the bikes have the chops, like the DNA's there. They can do it and they feel comfortable doing it. And they also have like built-in protections that you don't have to worry about things. You just go. More so than like a crossover would be. A crossover is not meant for that at all.
No,
but like
the crossover is further street than the S models that we are speaking of.
And that's where I think we are enticed by these new crossovers, is because it's like, well, shit, I hardly ever go off road, and this bike is just like pure on-road. The issue that I have is the ability to do forest service roads and gravel roads is something that we still enjoy. We still like to go do. If you're taking that away, now there's too much overlap with our naked bikes. So it's like you're basically buying a naked bike that now has wind protection and you've added bags to it, which isn't a bad thing if you didn't already own multiple bikes.
Yeah.
I could see that bike being like a Suzuki GSX S1000 GX Plus. Like I could see that being my only bike.
If you had to buy one, if you could only have one bike and you ride like we ride, like absolutely that bike, that would be the one. That's like as close as you're going to get to Nirvana.
It's like the perfect motorcycle for us.
Yeah.
Like I think that too, because when I sit there and think about out of my stable that I have, the Super Adventure is probably the one that would be most logical to be my one and only if I had to have one and only, but I would always miss the capabilities of a sport bike. I would always miss that because while the Super Adventure I can go pretty dang fast on it, it still misses that extra however many percent that the sport bike can do.
The ragged edge.
And I would miss that because when I run into like where I get to the point where I'm starting to push the front on the Super Adventure, and surprisingly, when I push the front on the Super Adventure, it's not scary. It's controlled, but I start noticing it. Like the bars will get light, and then sometimes I'll get a little bit of that chop, that kind of chop as the tire skips over.
Yep.
The chassis absorbs it really nicely, and the chassis stays composed, so it's not scary. But I notice it. I'm like, yeah, I got to back down. This is the limit of the bike. Where if I'm on the Super Duke, which is its cousin chassis, like they share pretty much the same design and everything, but because the bike's set up better and it's on 17s and blah blah blah. I'm not even going that same speed around that same corner. I'm nowhere near pushing the front on the Super Duke, and that's that limit, that edge that I miss. Where I feel like a lot of the crossover market doesn't bump into that edge like the Super Adventure does, and I'm sure it's there, and I'm sure it's not quite as high as a true sport bike.
But it would be higher than...
It'd be higher than the Super Adventure.
The Super Adventure.
And I think you'd be getting closer to that true sport bike. Dude, watch Cuban Rider sometime on YouTube. He's got a new bike now. He actually totaled it, but his original bike, or the bike he was famous on YouTube, it was an S1000 XR, about a 2016 model. That dude went way too fast on that thing. You know who Max Wrist is? Mm-hmm. He's a total douchebag.
Yep. And
Max Wrist was like running up and down Deal's Gap.
Mm-hmm.
And Cuban Rider can chase him down. Max Wrist is on S1000RR. Cuban Rider's on an XR. And Cuban Rider could chase him down. It was impressive. Like, that dude can move on that damn bike. And that just goes to show you what this crossover class is capable of. Yeah. They're just incredible machines that can go super fast, plus be comfortable and have luggage and have wind protection and all the amenities you could ever actually want.
Yep.
And since they've expanded beyond the S1000XR, there's a ton of options out there in this category. So it's like, and it's a growing category. They're growing into middleweights now. They're starting to produce middleweights of the crossovers.
Yep. We always talked about the middleweight category, how until the last couple of years, the middle category was a budget bike.
Yeah, it was always a budget bike.
It's always a budget version of the 1200 cc's or 1000 cc's or whatever. And you never could get all the things you really wanted on it. You wanted cruise control. You wanted the nice dash. You wanted all the extra frills and the 6-axis IMU and all that other stuff. And they would never put it on the budget ones. Now they do. And in fact, I almost feel like they are looking really hard at the middleweights as like the class leaders, and I feel like the big bikes are almost kind of falling off.
They
They're
have.
not really even looking at the big bikes
They're
anymore.
they're not doing much development on the big bikes.
How much power do you need?
Well, besides the GS, the
You
GS is
know?
the only one, which is
Well, but that's
in Europe. The GS
Yeah.
is the best selling motorcycle.
period.
So it's
Yeah.
like, best selling motorcycle above 400 cc.
Yeah, like a full size
But
motorcycle.
and like second place though is like the Tanner A700. It's like it's a middle class bike. That's the second place bike.
Yeah.
But the middle class, coming from my perspective, the big huge hard hitting motor is not a necessity, and I have the Super Adventure, but don't need all that motor. And at the time when I got the Super Adventure, there was nothing out.
Yeah, that was what existed.
800, 900 cc parallel twin, like that stuff didn't exist yet.
Yeah.
So like I was limited by choice, just because the market didn't have those solutions out there. But nowadays, my bike to replace the Super Adventure is leaning more and more towards something 800, 900 cc, 100-ish horsepower, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of becoming like where my focus is going towards. And part of me says like, am I going to miss the motor? Because like, floating the front over a hill, like hill crest and a fourth gear, just floater, like that stuff is really fun. And a big motor is what it takes to really do that with. But I can still float the front on pretty much anything you put me on. You toss me up over a hill, like I'm going to float the front.
Mm-hmm.
I'll carry it too. If the bike doesn't shut down the wheelie control, I will carry that sucker out because it's just fun. It's just super fun to do, and I want the bike to be playful like that. But I think back to it in my Hyper Motard, 110 horse, and I could float the front and fifth gear on that thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was nothing, and just pop up over a hill crest, the 3 hills on 10, that third hill every single time, just float it all the way down the hill. And I can do that on pretty much any motorcycle. So I don't think that's really going to get in my way too bad. And I like working for it more. I enjoy that more. Where like when you got a big motor, you don't necessarily work for it. You just spend your time trying to tame the damn thing because it's just so brutal. What's nice about the Super Adventure is it's a heavier bike and the horsepower is reduced on the engine comparatively to the Super Duke.
Yeah.
So I'm not fighting that bike's power so much. I can just ride it. Where the Super Duke, if I'm really trying to hustle on the Super Duke, then yeah, I'm trying to tame it a lot.
Well, you're constantly fighting against, the throttle on that, how much throttle you got to apply. And that bike, you can get into a situation where you can apply too much. And on like a middleweight, like an 890, 990, that's not going to be
traction control on that thing.
That's not going to be as big of an issue.
You can just meat fist it, and like it does not care. It's the tires are so good nowadays that traction control to me is like, I don't mind it being there. It doesn't get in my way by any means, but like I also don't feel like I need it on a 100 horse bike. It just doesn't feel necessary. It's nice to be there for safety, like patch of sand, patch of gravel, water, anything like that.
Yeah, if you get caught in the rain and stuff, it's handy nice to have in the rain and all that.
Yeah, it's nice and stuff like that. But as far as like dry weather, grip and stuff, I'm not worried about spooling up the rear on a 100 horse bike.
Yeah,
like,
you're not relying on that.
Like on the Super Duke, I have spooled up the rear. It's got enough power to absolutely do that. It'll step out on a corner exit. Like you can watch it leave blackies, like leaving corners, because it has that kind of power. But on a 100 horse bike, it's not
as big of a problem.
Yeah, like are you worried about it on your street triple?
No.
Like the traction control's there.
I can definitely light the traction control up if I really, really try.
And you really gotta abuse it.
Yeah, you have to
on the corner of the tire.
You have to try really, really hard to get the bike to do something that like it shouldn't do, or to get out of hand. Otherwise,
But in those circumstances,
you can't even notice.
like in those circumstances where you're really like, if you're all the way on edge of tire and you really whack the throttle on and you know you're going to light traction control up, if you didn't have traction control, do you feel like you could still control that? And that's what I mean. Like you're still in control. So ultimately, like the traction control is not really like you're trying to light it up just to be silly, but at the same time, you're like, I don't need it. It's not gonna save me from anything.
Well, and I don't think it's gonna. In that situation, it's not gonna make you faster.
No.
In that scenario, like having it there isn't going to give you any benefit.
I agree. Traction control should exist. And I'm happy with them putting it on whatever bikes they want to put it on. I do feel like it's kind of silly on a 400 class bike. Like it's
well.
kinda
So my
silly.
argument for that,
if the problem I have with it on a 400 class bike is I don't care about it from a learning perspective. I don't care about it from a necessity perspective. What I care about it is cost. If it's increasing the cost of a 400 class bike, it should not be on there because ultimately it provides zero benefit in my point of view.
I don't think it really increased any cost though, to be honest.
It probably doesn't because the ABS tone ring sensors, that's all going to exist.
And
it's all software at that point.
A 6-axis IMU in a computer for a bike, like the bike already has a computer. It has to have a computer because they're all fuel injected.
I doubt
the 6-axis IMU, it's pennies on the dollar. It doesn't really cost anything.
The hardware, no, but the software does. And
yeah, but they make the software for all the other bikes
everything.
That do come with that. So all they do is transplant that down to this other architecture.
Yeah, it does. It trickles down. You know, Reaganomics, it's way down. But
so it really, and do you really need a 6-axis setup like, you know, your Super Duke and all that? Do you really need the lean angle ABS and all that on a 400 class bike?
I would argue yes for the brake side of things. And since you have the hardware there for the brake side of things, why not put it on the throttle too?
It's just software.
Yeah, it's just software at that point. So why not put it on the throttle? I get it from that perspective. But ultimately, on the bottom line, if it's increasing the cost of the bike, anything significant, get it off the bike because a 400 class bike should be cheap, period. We should not have ultra premium 400 class bikes. It's not the point of that motorcycle. The point of that motorcycle is here, come how to learn how to ride motorcycles. And you're going to drop it 50 freaking times. That's the point of a 400 class bike. It has no business offering premium features, in my opinion. But middle class bikes, when you get into the 600 to 900 category of mid-class bikes, you get in there and it's like, and yes, there should be some ultra cheap mid-class bikes. The mid-class should be a giant broad range of motorcycles. You should have small bores that are for beginners, middle class that's ginormous and carries like every type of option you could possibly imagine, from ultra cheap, budget-friendly 650s to crazy tech loaded 900 whatever.
I would say like probably I would say 60% of the market is going to live in that middle class range.
Exactly. And so it should be the biggest by far.
I think 20 to 30% is going to be beginner.
Entry
level bikes, and then 60% in the other place,
70%.
And then, you know, there's going to be 10% or even less that is
big bore bikes,
big bad bikes, you know,
because there's always
riders.
There's always that guy that has to have the biggest and baddest one out there. You know, there's always that guy always exists. He's only going to buy it. You know, if you were a manufacturer and this year you had a 1200 and next year you had a 1300, he's trading in because he has to have the biggest and baddest one. So, you know, there's always that guy. He exists.
So when you buy in the 1300 Super Duke?
Never.
Well, you're not that guy?
No. And I tell customers all the time, like, hey, if the 890 Duke R existed when I bought my 1290 Super Duke, I would have bought it. It's a better bike.
It probably is a better bike all around right now.
Like I really enjoy riding that bike. It's such a phenomenal bike.
And it's lighter.
It's so much lighter. And when we were out on Jennings, like I could just be out there for like however long you want. 20-minute session, cool. I'll go out there and cut laps riding as hard as you want for 20 minutes straight. Get me on my Super Duke, 4 or 5 laps in, I'm cooked. Like I can't be out there anymore. I have to come off the track. Bike just wears me out so bad. You know, and that's what I really love about the middle class bikes. Like they're way easier to ride. Like what we were talking about, Nick S1000 versus with his Ninja. It's just his 600 so much easier to ride that it makes it more enjoyable. And I find that to be true in that regard. That's why I think the middle class should be the best. And I think they should offer the most options. And then sure, come out with some big flagship model that you don't plan on selling a crap ton of, and make it for people to aspire to. It's a bedroom wall poster car, like that kind of thing.
Yep.
Let the Panigales of the world exist. They have a point. They have a purpose. Yep. And that's fine. I don't hate on them for what they are. In fact, I love them.
I think they need to
awesome
exist.
Bikes, but
I mean, there's always where you're at, what you realistically would be able to achieve, but then there's what you want, and you got to settle somewhere in between.
Yep.
And so if you don't have that ridiculous Panigale that they can use to make all this fancy stuff, and they put it on that bike when it's new and it's way too expensive for you to realistically afford, but then it all trickles down and you end up with the bike that you actually want.
And at us being normal human beings, we will never achieve what a Panigale is capable of.
No.
Like if I went to a track day and I had the opportunity to ride Panigale V4R $40,000 motorcycle, and I didn't have to worry about crashing it, I didn't have to worry about tire wear, I didn't have any of those kind of problems. Someone was just like, here, get on this bike, learn it, and go as fast as you can. My lap times, even if they did improve, it would be marginal. Like it wouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to go to Jennings running if I'm hopeful, 125s on my Super Duke. More realistic, probably 127s on my Super Duke. Versus I get on this Panigale, it's not like I'm suddenly going to be running 119s. Like, no, I'm maybe a second faster if I gelled with the bike, but more than likely I'll be running slower than my Super Duke because I probably won't gel with it in that amount of time. But
yeah,
but
even so, like
it's not
even
gonna,
if
like,
you
just
had the
wildly
time and the
improve me.
effort to really learn that bike and do it all, you just probably wouldn't really get that much faster.
No, and because that's a me problem. That's not a bike problem.
Yeah, it's just a you, and it's a skill thing, and it's just a bar that is just, there's a bar somewhere out there in space that's just like, I'm never going to get above.
Yeah, and it's not for me to get above, and that's fine. Like I've accepted the fact that I'm 40 years old, and like this is where I'm at in motorcycling, and I can try to improve, but it'll be more improving from like a technical standpoint, and not necessarily like will I grow in total skill and speed. I don't think I'm ever gonna be much quicker than I am now. And
how much quicker do you need to be on the street right now for like the majority of the riding that we do? I mean,
street. I'm
you're way faster than we need to be going.
I do not ride on the street to 100% of my skills ever, like at all. Even on the Cheeseman trips, when I'm ripping faster than I ever should be, I am still not 100% there. And I leave that room on the table. Like, I'm having fun, man. I don't need to prove anything to anybody.
Yeah.
We've all been riding on that trip for a decade. We all know each other now, and we all know how fast each one of us is. We've got nothing, and we're all great friends, so we got nothing to prove to one another.
Well, that's not what it's not about that.
No.
That's where you get into trouble, is when you get with a bunch of people like that.
No one's got egos and stuff where we're at, and you and I know, we know how fast we are, and when we have whatever, if we run into people, especially younger guys on sport bikes and stuff, if we run into them, we don't feel anything to prove. We just ride. And when we're faster than they are, even when we're on adventure bikes, they're like, holy crap, and we're like, well, yeah, I mean, we've been doing this a long time. we've been actively trying to improve and learning technical riding ability and expanding our knowledge there and expanding our skill there. And then we've gone to racetracks and we do track days, we do kart track days and stuff, all focused on getting better and getting faster. It's like, well, no kidding, I'm fast. Like that's what I've been trying to do for 20 years. I hope I am at this point.
But it's like we're never gonna be as fast as a MotoGP rider or anything. And like that's a young man's sport. And you look at all those guys and like, oh yeah, they're all like in their early 20s.
Yeah, and
it's like, yeah, no shit. And they have no fear, and they've been doing this since before they could even like ride a pedal bike.
Well, even if you look at like the Moto America grid, by the time you're 30,
you're old.
You've aged out, man. Like you're done. Like
it's like sports, playing football or something like that.
Yeah,
it's the same thing. Like if you're 30, you're done.
Yeah,
you're cooked.
Anybody in the NFL, like when you're 30, you're like, okay, you're gonna park it now. And there's only a few exceptions to that where they can make it past that point and keep going, but that's not the rule. That's the exception. So like for us, we got started too late in life in this.
Yep.
And that's how it is. So we accepted that reality, and that's fine. We're just out here to have fun. And the reason that we improve our skill, I think, is out of enjoyment.
For personal gain.
Yeah, personal gain and enjoyment. Like ego has nothing to do with it. Like I don't care about showing off for everybody. Like I like improving, and I like getting better at it. And I'll see something out there and like, man, I think I can do that. Like what, if I think I can do it, well, let's go out there and try it and see how bad I am at it. And then, okay, let's think this through and like, how do I get to my expectation? How do I achieve that? And, just keep trying it over and and then start unlocking like keys to success and stuff. And you're like, okay, cool. And then
I think
that's
part of our personalities is that, like, I know I definitely have the trait, and I think you do too, of like, when you're faced with a challenge, you look for ways to beat the challenge, to do it and do it better.
Oh yeah.
And to better yourself at whatever it is, whether it's your work or whether it's, a personal hobby, whatever it is, you're always looking to learn and expand and do more and try to do it better. And I know I do that. I obsess over stupid things for no reason, for that exact reason. Stuff that doesn't really matter, but it's like, you look at it and you're like, damn it, I want to figure this out. Mm. And so I think that's just a quality that a lot of people like us have.
I think like in motorcycling in particular, this isn't in all aspects of my life, but specifically because I enjoy motorcycling and it's something I'm passionate about. But I don't like doing it unless it's challenging. Mm-hmm. Like we are on our little frostbite challenge, and I get coworkers or just random people like, well, why would you want to expose yourself to that? Why would you want to commit yourself to doing something that's stupid? Like, there's not any, what do you guys get for doing it? Like, they're worried about the prize. And I'm like, we have a prize, but I don't think any of us are realistically like, oh, well, that's the reason I'm doing it is because we're going to win a prize at the end. Like, no, I think we all just enjoy the challenge of it. Like, it's fun to like do something that most people don't. And it's tough and it's hard and you have to like actually think about stuff and consider things. So we're, what was it? 15 degrees the other morning. And I have to prepare myself for that. Like, I have to prepare to be out there. 'Cause if one little slip in my gear, and it could be bad news. I'm riding 50 miles each way. It's an hour ride each way. And one little tiny, mess up in my gear. And that's that. Like, I couldn't even imagine. Like, I have redundancy. Like, that's how serious I am about it. Because if I'm halfway through, man, I'm royally screwed. If like my heated gloves just quit on me for whatever reason, now what?
Yep,
I'm screwed. No, I have elephant ears, and I have glove liners. They're in my bike, so I can put the glove liners in, put the heated gloves on top without that are no longer heated.
Yep,
and then I can put my elephant ears on my bike and have those going, and and then turn my heated grips on. So will it be as comfortable? No, but will it?
You're gonna survive.
I'll survive, and I'll make it to work, and then I'll make it home. So I'll do okay. If my heated jacket goes out, I have an extra liner and my rain fly. Mm-hmm. So I got an extra liner and my rain fly in my bike at all times, and that's just in case my heated gear fails. Then what? It would suck when it's 15 degrees out. Like, you cannot ride, in my opinion, without heated gear in those kind of conditions.
I don't think you can, because like any kind of jacket, coat, anything you've got, it all works off of your own body heat. And when you're riding at those speeds, it doesn't matter how many layers of clothes you got.
It just strips all your heat away.
It just strips the heat away. And there's always some layer of penetration with the wind.
Yep. Yeah, it's 60 miles an hour. That wind's getting through there.
Yeah. And so you cannot hold on to your heat fast enough, and your body can't generate the heat. So you're always operating at a loss. So you have to have something that is creating heat for you. And heated gear is the only way to do that.
Supplementing your heat.
So you have to have that. And the battery heated gear is not good enough.
No, it's
not for those kind of temperatures. You can get away with that at a little bit higher temperatures, or for shorter periods of time.
30 degrees, it's fine. But like, you wake up, it's below 20. Yeah.
You got to have it. And you got to have all of it.
It's a necessity.
Head to toe, you got to have all the winter gear. I'm very shocked at how warm my helmet stays.
Really, your helmet stays pretty warm?
Like, I don't know that I've really ever had a helmet problem, like a cold head.
Do you wear a baklava or anything? Yeah, I don't wear a baklava.
It aggravates me to death. I have one that I've worn, a thin one, but it just drives me nuts. I can't stand the way it feels. It like gets in my eyes, and it like crumples up and around my beard and stuff. That's my baklava, is my beard.
I was going to say, it sounds like you would be beneficial just to carry a neck gaiter.
So yes, it would be, and I've thought about just getting one, but because I'm so short, all of my jackets,
they go up to your chin.
The necks around all my jackets are all way too tall.
Yeah. And
so they always are damn near choking me.
That makes sense.
And so when I put my helmet on, I have the chin cover that goes underneath the helmet, like that blocks the bottom end, the curtain. Yeah. That goes underneath the jacket, like below it. So I don't have any
issues with the neck,
any open spots.
I
don't even need the neck gaiter.
If I didn't wear neck protection, I'd be screwed. So I always have a baklava, more so for the neck protection, but usually because I'm also riding an hour at a time in the cold.
You have a lot further to go.
Then I do notice the cold creep into the helmet. I do notice that.
My trip isn't very far, so maybe I would notice that if I had to go further.
And more specifically, when I jump onto the highway, that's when the cold creep into the helmet really starts to take effect, and the baklava really negates that. So the only real cold penetration I have is I wear the baklava. I don't wear it up over my nose, because if I wear it up over my nose, my glasses fog. Steamed. I just get crazy fog in the glasses.
Yeah.
So I wear it below my nose and then around my eyes, and that's the only thing that's exposed on me inside my helmet. And my nose gets cold. It does. And when it was 15 degrees out, I could feel the burn on my skin. But by the time I got to work, the burn didn't
getting off the highway, the burn went away very quickly.
It went away, and the burn didn't even leave my skin red. So it wasn't that bad. I've ridden in cold before where I didn't have a baklava, and it was 7 degrees out when I rode. And I remember my forehead starting to burn, and it was to the point where it was like, all right, this is going to leave a mark. And when I got to work, my forehead looked sunburned.
Yeah, it was like purple.
Yeah, it looked sunburnt, and people it stayed all day. I had it all day.
Yeah.
It was like, yep, I damaged the skin there. It was that cold out. So that's why I started wearing baklavas. But yeah, I don't like doing. Like we were talking about your buddy that rides the Harley and stuff, and all he does is just kind of cruise, which is fine if that's what you're into, but I'm not into it, and it has zero appeal to me because there's no challenge, there's no skill, it's just kind of like you just hop on top of this machine and just putt down the road, and it has. Like I said, it's fine if that's what you like to do, but it's not what I like to do. And it's when we're talking about hopping on the scoots and riding with guys like that and just going out for a whatever ride, that is far more engaging to me because when he accelerates up to 50 miles an hour, I have to try to accelerate to 50 miles an hour. You know what I mean? Like I really got to put some effort into it because the scoot it's a little baby scoot with 10 horsepower. So
yeah, the skill bar, I guess, is lower for you. So it's more of a challenge to do the same thing. Not that it's really a challenge to ride those for most of the time. I mean, when we go out aggressive riding on them, yeah, it's a different level because again, the bar is lower. But
it's more engaging than riding my super capable bike. When I'm trying to ride the super capable bike, you know, whether it's my adventure bike or the naked or my Super Duke or whatever it is, and I ride with guys like that just want to putt around on a Harley, it makes me question what I'm doing. But when I go out with them when I'm on my scoot, I'm comfortable. I'm having a good time. I'm not caring about, you know, not going fast and stuff like that. I'm just like, oh yeah, this is whatever. This is fun. We're just out here goofing around.
If I'm going slow on my street triple, like I'm annoyed.
Yeah, you're like, I want to get off this thing. I don't want to ride this anymore. Yep. Like it's just not fun. And then you start like, I don't know about you, but I get into my head like, fuck, I'm squaring off these tires and, you know, doing all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I get frustrated. I'm putting miles on this thing and I'm not enjoying the miles, you know. I'm always thinking about stuff like that, and it gets super annoying. Like I hate when I get into my headspace like that because I know I shouldn't be doing that. You know, like I should be just calm down and have a good time. Hey, we're out here riding motorcycles, right? Like this should be fun, but it just ultimately isn't fun, and that's when I get upset about it. Not enough to like, you know, be mad at that person literally. I'm more mad at myself for my bike selection is usually what it comes down to. Like, damn it, I shouldn't have rode this bike. I should have rode my other bike.
Yeah. It's hard to judge that sometimes, which bike you should ride, because you don't know.
Yeah, you don't know what you're going to be getting into.
What you're going to get into.
Because sometimes you grab the adventure bike and then all of a sudden you're wanting to go faster than that, and you're like, damn it. And you're just stuck on this thing. Like, all right, whatever.
Yep. Getting left in the dust. It just depends on the group that who ends up showing up sometimes. Sometimes you get surprised at who.
And like we go down to that the Cheeseman trip, and
well, you know what's going to happen on that trip, so you know you're at least halfway planned.
The one year I brought my Super Adventure because it was supposed to rain the whole time, and then it didn't rain at all. It was beautiful the whole time, and I'm sitting here stuck on my Super Adventure like, well, this sucks. And you know the guys were all like complimenting on how fast I was going on that thing, but ultimately it was just like, yeah, but it's not the Super Duke. I can't go that fast on this thing. You know?
Yeah, you wanted some more out of it,
and it just didn't have it in it. So I was like, well, oh well. But like on the Cheeseman trip, I honestly kind of hate riding the same bike for the whole trip. Like I'm like, you know, if you only have one bike with you, like when I bring just the Super Duke, I'm like, I don't want to ride this thing again today. You know, like
it's nice to have the luxury of being able to take two bikes.
Yep.
Because then you want the fast bike. You want the fast day on, probably the first day. And you want to get that out of the way. And you might even have the second day be a fast day too. But after that, you're kind of like, you want
a textile day.
Yeah, you want a textile day. You want to slow down just a hair. You want to do a little more sightseeing per se. Not go, because on the fast days when you're going fast, like
you're just humping through there.
You're just humping through, and
you're not paying attention to anything else. You're just
Yeah.
hauling the mail, and that's that.
And you want to do that on those days.
Well, yeah,
But
and
then
you
you
get down
also
there with
want,
those guys. Like those
yeah.
guys are all, they're all riders, and you get down there and you want to bust ass with them. It's fun.
Yeah, and then after that, you want your day where you can like kind of take it easy a little bit. You can kind of goof off a little bit more. You can go take some roads that you wouldn't take on a super sport.
Yeah, and I like, I like exploring new roads and finding the new stuff. That's fun, but that requires the time to do it. So you have to like take the time to do it. And I don't want to do it on my sport bike. I want to do it on a bike that's more comfortable and just easier to do it on. And the day's going to be easier. So it's like, yeah, I'll take the adventure bike and we'll go out exploring and find some new roads.
And with the adventure bike, you can take a longer day.
A longer day
because you can pack different gear.
You
can pack some more food.
You can pack all your comfy stuff and
you don't have to
layers.
You don't have to plan out your stops because the bikes typically have enough gas that you really can get anywhere you need to go. So like it makes way more sense to have that as for your Explorer day. You're gonna have a bigger day. You're not gonna be riding as hard, but you're gonna be riding longer. You're gonna be stopping and looking at stuff and doing other things, and it's way easier to strip off a textile jacket and go walk around some waterfall or something than it is to have your leathers on.
Yeah, and then
because your leathers are only comfortable when you're riding hard on a bike.
Well, it's not
when you're not thinking about it.
They're not comfortable. You're just not thinking about it.
Yeah,
and they're the most protection you can possibly put on. Yep. So it's like they just make the most sense.
Yeah,
but I was wanting to talk to you about that too. For a trip this year. For the Cheeseman trip. I know we keep saying like, we're going down because it might be Cheeseman's last trip, and he wasn't even on last year's trip, which kind of sucked. And to me, the trip, it misses something when he's not there, some magic that he brings.
Yeah, I know.
And that sucks. And I got to ride with him this past summer, and I didn't realize he's as old as he is. And he told me, he's like, yeah, dude, I'm 67. And I'm like, damn, like you're that close to 70? Holy crap, dude. Like I didn't realize it was like that, It was like, man, like reality check, they just slapped me in the face like, holy crap, Cheeseman's going to be 70 in a couple years. Like, Jesus. So that really means like, health-wise, even if he does come on the trip, he's not going to be riding to what he used to. And, which I'm not mad at him for, you get old, dude. But, at the same time, I do miss it. And since the other thing is all the other guys, they're all getting, dad bikes. Monger's got a 1290 Super Adventure. Lou's got an S1000 XR. Schmidt just picked up a 1290 Super Adventure.
Did he?
Yeah. And, who else has got
Copycat.
Dad bikes? But they're all getting dad bikes now. So I'm like,
bad dad bikes. Like, oh man, these things are so amazing. It's like, where were you 5 years ago when we bought ours?
Monger, you ought to hear him talk about that Super Adventure.
Oh, I know. The whole trip last year, that's all he talked about was how awesome the thing was.
He's like, oh my God, this thing's incredible. It's so good. I'm like, I know, I own one. I know. But I'll let them have their fun because they're just now experiencing it and everything. But what that means is the trip's going to be slower. It's going to be slowed down. So we're going to be kind of missing out on our sport bikiness. I don't know what to do or say about that, but that's just a fact of life. But what I was thinking was Nick doesn't own a dad bike. No matter how much we want him to, the fact is he doesn't own one. And I don't really care if he wants one, if he doesn't want one, whatever. But he doesn't own one. John's bike, it's John. Can he make it? I don't know. But John doesn't own a dad bike, but his bike is more dad-like than a full sport bike, So he could be fine no matter what, whether we were taking dad bikes or we were taking sport bikes. But John, all of us have a sport bike and all of us have a scoot. What if either instead of or in supplement to the Cheeseman trip, we just took a trip with us, like how you and I did it that one year where we stayed out at Tellico Plains and we rode, well, you only had the Z9 at that point. And we brought the Benelli on that trip. But I had the Versus and the Super Duke. And God, that was a good trip. That was an excellent trip. I'm not suggesting that we ride the amount of miles that we rode because it was a lot of miles every day. It was like 400 plus miles. Like it was just massive because it was like a 100-mile commute to catch up with Cheeseman and the gang. I'm not suggesting that. And I'm not suggesting that we stay so far away. But what I am thinking is their trip is probably going to be like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing, which is fine. Why don't we go the whole week before? And then just Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we meet up with them. Or vice versa. If they're Saturday, Sunday, Monday kind of weekend, like sometimes they do it that way. Instead, yeah, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, we meet up with them. We ride with them. But when they all leave, we just stay. Yeah. And whether we stay with them and do the normal Cheeseman trip, and then afterwards we leave, whatever. I don't think Nick will be so far out this year because everybody's on dad bikes. I think the pace is going to be slower. I don't think it'll ever be what it once was. You got a piece of the magic last year when we all hustled down 28. That was a piece of magic. Like that was one of the, and we were all super tired and we'd already had a long day, but we captured some magic for a moment, even though Cheeseman wasn't with us. Like, you went fast enough. Dave, what's his name?
Bannister.
Yeah. Dave Bannister kind of fell off. And you were like, were you all the way in the back or was Schmidt behind you?
I don't remember. I think he was in front of me because I was with him.
I think I remember you being all the way in the back.
Yeah, I think I was all the way in the back, and he was in front of me, and I was with him through, like, most of it, and then I just started falling off at the end.
But what I remember is both of you stayed in earshot, and you guys were all the way in the back. Like, I could still hear you over Cardo.
We weren't that far behind.
Which means we were in the same corner. Like, because I was leading, and I had me, Cobb, I think Roller was behind Cobb, and Monger. But I can't remember who was. Roller and Monger might have been positions changed. That's who was directly behind me. And then I think Schmidt and you, and then Bannister was way back there. But when we hustled down 28, it was like pure and true hustle. And I think because I like looked in my rear view, and I told them, I was like, hey, look, I'll lead down. And then when I find the turnaround spot, because I knew where I wanted to turn around, I wanted to use that bridge to turn around. I was like, when I find the turnaround spot, we'll all turn around, and then someone else is going to lead back up because I'm cooked, dude. I was like, I'd led all day. It's like, I am done. I'm out of energy. So I'll lead down, but then one of you all is going to lead back up, and I'm going to take it easy on the way back up. And they're like, okay. And on the way down, I look in my rear view, and I see the whole like line stacked up behind me, and I'm like, hell yeah. And then Cobb was like up my ass. And I was like, all right. So I started pouring it on heavier and heavier and heavier. And Cobb was like sticking with me to the point where it was like, all right. So I just started dropping knees. I was like, I'm putting knees on the ground and I'm full on haul the mail, like track pace. Here we go. And I see Cobb like kind of falling off a little bit, but still sticking with me. And then by that time the road was over, turn around. And then Roller takes off and he leads. And Roller, you know how quick he is. Like, he's a quick dude. He takes off and leads on that stupid bike. And he goes faster than I was going because he was willing to go fast in the straights. Like, I was still keeping the speed checked in straights. You know, like, I'm only going, 75, 80 in the straights. This dude's just ripping. Just full track pace. Here we go. 120 in the straights. Don't matter. So I'm so impressed and I'm so laughing about Roller going so fast. Then I'm like, screw it. I kind of want to keep up just to watch, you know, until one time we get into a straighter section and he just busts out some mile an hour that I was like, all right, I'm out, dude. Like I ain't going that fast. But, you got to capture some of that magic. And that's what a proper Cheeseman trip is supposed to be like. Like a bunch of dudes that are highly skilled riders, you know, like really, really ride, that are just going way faster than we ever should. And it's our one trip a year that we do it on. And we all get in that line, and that line, we're all so in sync. And it's just this snake just flying through there. It's so cool. And like when you're leading, you look in your mirror and it's just stacked up. Like everybody's on your tire, and like, oh, it looks so cool in your mirror. And then when you're behind, like when you're in the tail end of the group, because I mean, we're all going the same pace. So it's not like being at the tail end isn't a bad thing. In fact, I love being at the tail end of it, because then you get to see everybody out in front of you. And you're like, oh, it's incredible watching them all stacked up. Everybody's like crazy banked over, like all kinds of stupid lean angle. We're going well faster than we should, but it's just so much fun. But we captured some of that last year. I'm sure we can still capture some of it this year, but everybody's going to be on dad bikes, which is whatever. And maybe they will bring a second bike, you know, and have some fun on second bikes. But I think even if we bring Nick, there's going to be some times when he's outclassed, but it's good for him because it'll grow his skill riding with faster dudes. Nick's hilarious. I'm not worried about him fitting in with the group, and everybody's like real accepting. You know, everybody's real cool. But when we stay later beyond the Cheeseman trip, you know, that's when it'll be like, okay, we've done the sport bike thing. Let's put those away. Let's jump on the scoots and let's go do big scoot day and just be stupid on the scoots. And if we, you know, like, you know, Cheeseman trip, all those guys, they pack up and go home, say we're staying in that same place we were staying, if that's available. I don't know if it is after the storms, but if we're staying in something like that, cool. I don't want to pay for that place. The place is super expensive. So we just pack up and head down the road, stay wherever. We can stay at another campground, or we can stay at a little motel, or whatever we stay at. It doesn't matter. But do it on the cheap, and that way we don't have a big thing to split. I'm all for doing a campground. I really like the Tellico Plains style. We don't have to stay out there, but
there's a couple of those around Maggie Valley that aren't too bad, I don't believe. So depending on what your camper situation is at that time,
and we'll figure that out. You know, like it won't be a big deal. Like even if we do it in your trailer, I don't mind. Like, who cares? Like, you know, we can pitch a tent outside of the trailer. It doesn't matter. But we'll figure out something like that, and then we can go finish out the rest of the week doing that, if you're willing to take a week of vacation. But that'll be Cheeseman trip plus a bunch of extra, and we'll get like massive amounts of riding in and do some mini bike days, do some sport bike days. I don't think it would be wise to bring adventure bikes and sport bikes and scooters. Like, I think that'd be a little too much.
2 bikes is enough because you got to figure there's going to be 4 of us. That's 8 bikes we got to transport. So we got to fit all that in my trailer probably, which between, if we do 2 scoots in the truck, and then I think we should be able to get everything else in the trailer probably.
Well, we can definitely get 4 bikes in your trailer. Could we get 5 would be the question. If we could get 5 in there, magic, we could fit 3 scoots in the truck.
We could do, if John didn't have such a boat of a freaking scoot.
Well, his will go in the truck. His
the one I worry about.
His will go in the truck.
Because I think if we do your truck.
Yeah, if we do my truck.
Because we could do the 2 in the normal spots, and then we can do 1 in the middle. I'm pretty sure we can get 3.
I don't think we can do one in the middle.
I think we could do 3 sport bikes, 3 in my trailer.
And then I know 2 in the front because we fit 2 in the front sideways.
We can get 2 goofy scooters in the front. We can do whatever for those.
Yeah.
That won't be a big deal. And then the 2 in the back, right?
Yeah, we'll need 3 in the truck because we'll have 8 bikes total.
Yeah.
So
we can probably get 3 scooters in the truck.
Either way, we'll figure it out. We'll figure something out. Worst case scenario, I guess we got to take 2 trucks, and that would suck. But oh well. But we'll figure something out, and it would be really fun to have all of those bikes down there because it's only 2 bikes a piece. You know
what? We can probably stack them all sideways in my trailer. I bet they'd all go that way.
And that's
because my trailer's wide enough for that.
I did that before.
Adventure bikes won't go, but we would be taking adventure bikes. So
I mean, we could figure out something for sure. But the it'd be fun, and then if John can't make it, which I wouldn't be surprised. Then he can, then we'll only have 6 bikes to worry about. And 6 bikes we can absolutely, that's not a problem at all. 2 in the truck, 4 in the trailer, no problem.
Yeah, it's easy.
So that'll be no problem whatsoever. But the big thing is, if we can get John to come, we'll figure it out, man. We'll make it happen.
We'll get them all in there. I know we've put 3 scooters. Well, I guess not really a scooter. Jessica's rally, but I'm sure at the same rate a scooter would equally fit. I'm sure we could get 3 in the back of the truck because they all went on your little trailer, and I know the bed of your truck is bigger than the trailer.
Yeah, it's the same size. It's 5x8. It's identical size. Having the trailer is like having a second truck bed.
Yeah. Okay. I know we can figure it out.
Yeah, but we'll figure that out
if we have to do 3.
And we'll figure it out. It'll be fine. We can definitely fit 2 in the bed of my truck. That's not a problem. But fitting 3 in there is going to be a little bit wonky. Plus, getting them up in there will be wonky too. But we can figure it out. So I don't think it'll be a big issue.
That'll be a good problem to have in the future.
Yep. And I think doing a trip like that, meet up with Cheeseman, whatever. If John and Nick, if they don't quite, it's always been a concern of mine. You always want to bring, if you're going to bring somebody on that trip, they need to be kind of on that pace. And it's hard to find dudes that are on that pace because it's a high level of riding. So, but I feel like everybody that was there is kind of slowed down. It was last year and the year before that was similar, and it's been a while since it was everybody was really cooking. It's surprising how much Lou has slowed down.
I always wondered about that because you've always talked about he was
the fastest dude I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm I haven't.
You've never got to witness it. Yeah. You've never got to witness it.
I've never been able to experience it.
It's you just.
He's always had that XR.
Yeah. Since you've been riding with him.
No, because he did have
that one year he had a 625.
He did have the 625 there the one year.
But he just wasn't feeling it that year.
Yeah. And I think he wasn't even there the year before or something like that.
Yeah, most of the time he doesn't come.
So yeah, just he's
been out of it for a while.
Yeah.
And it's sad that you never got to witness it. Your skill achieved where it is now, and his skill is kind of where it was, and then it's come down, and he's just kind of he's dang near 50 now and all that. But, when I got to witness the full Lou-ness of everything 10 years ago, it was just he was on a different planet, man. And he takes a bike, you can't fathom how terrible of a motorcycle it is. And he just made it go so fast. It's hard for me to describe how much work I had to do to just watch him fade off into the distance. Mm-hmm. That's how fast he was. It was incredible to watch. So much fun to watch, but you'd get wore out trying to watch him because he just did it so effortlessly, and that's what blew my mind. And he would do it on freaking Michelin Pilot Powers, the old original Michelin Pilot Powers, which I do not like. It's a very lazy profile. It's like not a good tire in my opinion. It grips fine, but and you run out of edge. Like you don't run out of edge grip, you run out of edge. Like you just feel the edge of the tire. It's like whoa, because an old school tire. But man, he would go so fast on those things. So you had to miss out with that. And you know, Schmidt he talks a big game. Schmidt's always been like that. But Schmidt will surprise you, man. Like where I remember like Schmidt always talking this big game, and he would get down there on like a sport bike, and he'd be kind of like not that fast. But then Schmidt got on that Husaberg when he had the Husaberg 570. Mm-hmm. He got on that thing, and he was fast. And I was like, there's the Schmidt I've been waiting on. Like, he's been talking all that game for however long, but you put his ass on a supermoto, you take him to a kart track, or you take him to the mountains on a supermoto, he's proper fast. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's the Schmidt I've been looking for.
Yeah, because I haven't really seen him be like crazy fast on the Super Duke.
Even on the Super Duke, he's like I'll leave him behind. But man, I'm telling you, put him on a supermoto, and especially if you see him at the kart track, you're like, oh. Yeah, he's fast.
I'm sure. And I know he talked about like having to do a bunch of work to the one he's got or whatever. So I don't know if he'll bring something like that back down to the mountains or not.
No, he won't bring a supermoto back down to the mountains. Like, he learned that lesson that supermotos just don't really make sense down there. Like 60 miles between fill-ups, and he has to change the oil halfway through the trip. And so he's just like, yeah, fuck this thing, man. Like, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
Too old for all that, so... All right, we'll hit the music and call it.
Yep.
Maybe a little Nick sound effect in memory of.
We'll catch him next week.
Yeah, we'll catch him next one. Well, no, we won't. He's gone until like the 18th.
That's a bum.